Hi, welcome to Armchair Philosophy. I'm Ruben Marshak, and today I'll be talking about the problem of evil. For the most part, people in our society know the basic premise of the problem of evil. God is supposed to be all-knowing, all-powerful, and extremely benevolent. So he should be able to destroy evil whenever it pops up. If he's all-powerful and all-knowing, then he should know when any evil pops up and should be able to deal with it. And if he's benevolent, he would deal with it. At first glance, this seems like a useful tool in the atheist's repertoire, but I have to ask, is the problem of evil really a problem at all? Reading through the Bible, you'll notice some things about God's actions. Namely, that he's not a really good guy. He kills countless people, justifies things like rape and warfare, and famously, or infamously, in the book of Job, he just sits back and allows terrible things to happen to an innocent man to prove a point or for some kicks. He also isn't all-knowing in the Bible. He asks questions to almost every important character in the Bible, starting with Adam, and he even engages in arguments with Abraham over the fates of Sodom and Gomorrah. And he does specifically refer to himself as a jealous God. Jealousy being something that you're not supposed to do within the rules that he's set up within his own book. You shouldn't covet your neighbor's possessions or their wife. It's clear from the text that whoever committed these actions isn't the best moral authority. In Judeo-Christian canon, the easiest way to point out that God isn't all-powerful is by looking at the creation myth in Genesis. After creating everything that exists, God rests. But why? Rest is, after all, something that serves a specific purpose. It replenishes the body with energy after performing strenuous tasks. But God isn't specifically supposed to have a physical body, and an all-powerful being would literally have no need for rest in any circumstance. But okay. Let's say you're not a fundamentalist, but you're still religious. You don't think that the Bible literally accounts for the actual nature of God. Well, then we have to take alternative points of view on God into our account. Joseph Campbell, who codified the hero's journey, pointed out many times in writings and interviews that there's a difference between a personal God and an impersonal God. A personal God is like what's found in the Bible. It has human traits. It's been personified. An impersonal God is something like the Tao or the Hindu idea of Brahman. It has no real consciousness, no human traits, and really no association with humans at all. Considering the possibility of an impersonal God, or deistic God, or really most gods from most mythologies, the problem of evil doesn't really apply. An impersonal or deistic God might not even have the capacity for moral reasoning or decision-making in general. Stepping back for a moment, let's assume that there actually is a God that meets all of these criteria. It's all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful. Does it have any moral obligation to destroy evil? Such a God is literally supreme, so in all senses of the word, it's superior to all other things. That includes moral obligations. If a moral obligation has power over God, then that God isn't supreme. It's literally inferior to the moral obligation. So the God who meets the criteria of the problem of evil doesn't have to deal with moral obligations. In addition, this supreme creator God created all things, both good and evil. It has no reason to prefer one of its creations over the other, and destroying evil might be the moral equivalent to it of destroying good. One popular argument against this is that God's nature is what it means to be good. But if that's the case, then how does evil arise in the first place? Supposing that God is all-powerful and the creator of all things, it must still have the capacity to create evil things. The Bible supports this. In Isaiah 45:7, God states, "I form the light and create darkness. I bring prosperity and create disaster. I, the Lord, do all these things." When someone has the capacity to do something, that means it's part of their nature. A musician who plays a Bach piece must have some quality of musicianship. They have to be able to play an instrument or read music, and ideally they should understand the theory behind the music that they're reading. By virtue of being able to play the song, that musician shows that they have the quality of musicianship, or in Platonic terms, that they take part or participate in the form of music or musicianship. To say that something is outside of a thing's nature is to say that that thing can't participate in that task or that form. But by virtue of being all-powerful, God must have the ability to create evil. God must at least have the capacity to participate in the form of evil. And so evil is part of God's nature. The problem of evil has very specific criteria which aren't actually met by any mythological system in history or any philosophical idea or understanding of God. Even if those criteria were met, God still isn't necessarily required to do anything about evil. It's still a supreme creator of all things, so it should be called what it is, a God. The presence of moral problems from our perspective doesn't negate those things. So why is the problem of evil used so often by atheists and anti-theists? It is probably just an irrational response to an irrational premise. The God of popular Judeo-Christian culture doesn't actually have its foundations in the religious texts of the system or any rational philosophical system. It's just a culturally invented thing. Religious people have created a kind of straw man in their definition of God, and those who use the problem of evil as their argument against it have fallen directly into the trap. The problem of evil may still be an acceptable response to a poor understanding of religious literature, but in terms of actual more serious arguments about God or the nature of God or being, it doesn't really hold any water. That's all for this time on Armchair Philosophy. I hope you liked the video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. And if you really want to support us, go on to Patreon and you can make monthly donations, and we have a whole slew of rewards for that. It's great. And we have t-shirts for sale still on the website MilwaukeeAtheist.com. That's all. Bye-bye.